Have you ever heard a sound so faint, you're not sure if it's real, or if it's just your mind cracking under pressure? Last night, I swear the wind carried screams from houses that don't exist anymore. Tell me in the comments where you are watching this from tonight? Because wherever you are, imagine it being swallowed whole overnight, leaving nothing but shadows that won't stay quiet. And hey, before we go further, make sure you're subscribed. You won't want to miss what happens when I finally uncover what this village left behind. After that first night in the abandoned village, sleep didn't come easily. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw the windows, those empty frames like hollow sockets in a skull. They seemed to lean closer, as if the whole village itself was watching me. By morning, the mist was still there, a damp curtain that never lifted. My boots sank into mud far too wet for soil that hadn't seen rain in weeks. Above me, the church bell hung silent and rusted, swaying like a dead weight. I kept telling myself, this is research, just a story for the archives. But there was more than curiosity pulling me deeper. My grandmother used to whisper about this place. She'd say, don't ask about the ones who vanished. The earth buried them because it didn't want them walking free. As I wandered, I noticed details that didn't belong. Food left half-eaten on a table, rotting now but still in place as if someone had just stepped away. A child's doll propped neatly on a porch chair, its painted eyes gouged out. Doors swinging open, creaking though the air was still. And the smell. Not rot. Not damp earth. Something faintly metallic like blood carried on the fog. I wanted to leave. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. But that's when I found the journal. It was tucked under a loose floorboard in one of the cottages, leather cracked with age. The handwriting was frantic, slanted, each line darker than the last. It spoke of voices under the well, of children waking at night with bleeding ears, of a debt the elders paid to keep the soil fertile. That was the first time I saw the name written over and over again in the margins, Run. At first I thought it was just a name. But when I whispered it aloud, the ground seemed to pulse beneath my feet. And here's the thing that wasn't even the worst part. Because the journal ended mid-sentence. Ink smeared by what looked disturbingly like a handprint was dragged across the page. The name wouldn't leave my head, Run. It rolled on my tongue like ash, bitter and wrong. I didn't know the language well, but my grandmother's voice rose in memory. Never call them by name. The dead listen when you do. I should have shut the journal and walked away. But curiosity, that same poisonous hunger that had dragged me into this ruined village, kept my eyes moving across the page. The entries painted a picture more horrifying than any ghost story. This village had once thrived even while nearby towns starved. Lush harvests, healthy cattle, endless streams of fish. The elders called it a blessing. But the journal told a different truth. Once every decade, they gathered at the old well in the center of the square. At night. No lanterns, no witnesses. They brought someone always young, always healthy. And they fed them to something below. The name wasn't spoken aloud in those gatherings. Only whispered into the soil. But the writer, they couldn't stop themselves from recording it, line after line, like a confession they hoped someone would read when it was already too late. I looked up from the journal and realized I was standing near that very well. Its stones were slick, blackened, almost greasy. The rope that once lowered the bucket had been cut, frayed as if gnawed through by teeth. That smell hit me again, metallic, damp. It seeped up from the opening. And then I heard it. Drip, drip. Not water. Thicker. Slower. I held my breath, leaned closer. That's when the whispers began. Not words at first. Just breathe. In and out. Too many, like a crowd waiting for me to fall in. And then, clear as glass breaking, one voice rose among them. Stay. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the journal, my chest hammering. My eyes darted across the square, empty windows, sagging roofs, doors hanging open like mouths. No movement. No life. Yet the air carried the weight of eyes I couldn't see. And then I thought of my grandmother again. Her stories. Her warnings. She'd always forbidden us from playing near wells as children, saying they were mouths the earth uses to feed. What if she hadn't been speaking in metaphor? That was when the pages of the journal flipped on their own, caught by a wind that shouldn't have existed. My hands shook as I watched it stop on one final entry. When the 10th year comes, we must give ourselves. If we don't, it will take everyone at once. And in the margin, scratched so deep the leather tore. This time we refused. That's when it clicked. The villagers hadn't vanished. They'd been collected. All at once. And here's the real horror. If you found that journal, if you stood at the mouth of that well, hearing those whispers, what would you do? Would you run, or would you look deeper? Tell me in the comments what you'd do. 'Cause I swear, I made the wrong choice. If you're still with me, like this video, share it and subscribe. Because what happens next? The village finally answers. And trust me, you don't want to face it alone. I thought I could just walk away. Close the journal, step back from the well, pretend I hadn't heard that voice. But the village wouldn't let me. Every path I took circled me back to the same square, the same mouth in the earth. That's when I realized I wasn't lost in the village. The village was lost inside me. The fog thickened, crawling low along the ground until my boots vanished beneath it. It wasn't natural mist. It clung, pulled, as if tiny hands were gripping my ankles. And then I saw movement. At first just a ripple. Then a full figure emerged from the fog, small, thin, dragging its feet like it hadn't walked in years. A child. Its face was pale, features sagging like melted wax. But its mouth was open in a silent scream, stretching wider than any jaw should. It raised a hand, fingers curled inward. In its palm was a wet scrap of cloth, stained dark. When I blinked, it wasn't cloth anymore. It was an ear. I staggered back, clutching the journal to my chest like it could shield me. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. This isn't real. This isn't real. But then I remembered the line in the journal, children waking with bleeding ears. My stomach turned. My legs shook. And before I could react, more shapes rose from the fog. Dozens. Each silent, each with mouths stretched wide, each holding something broken. Nails. Pieces of themselves. They weren't just echoes. They were offerings. Their heads all turned in unison. Toward me. That's when the whispers returned, louder now, overlapping. Not begging. Demanding. Stay. 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 I wanted to scream, but my voice died in my throat. The journal slipped from my shaking hands, hitting the stones with a dull thud. And the child closest to me smiled. The smile stretched until it tore the skin, blood dripping down its chin. It lifted its hand again, this time pointing at me. The whispers fell silent. And in that silence, I realized the village wasn't just showing me what happened. It was a choice. Here's the question. If a cursed village marked you to replace the souls it lost, would you fight it? Or would you surrender? Tell me in the comments, because the choice I made might have damned me. Like this video if you're still with me. Subscribe if you want the rest of this nightmare. Share it so no one stumbles into this village alone. The fog closed in so tightly, it felt like breathing through wet cloth. My throat burned. My chest locked. And all those pale children didn't move closer. They didn't need to. They were waiting. Because they knew exactly where I would end up. At the well. No matter how many turns I tried, no matter which crumbling street I followed, I always returned to the square. And each time, the well loomed taller, darker, its rim glistening with something thicker than water. The journal lay open where I dropped it, pages fluttering though the air was still. And scrawled across a page I swore had been blank before, was one new line. It's your turn. Against every instinct screaming in my body, I stepped closer. The rope was gone, but a rusted pulley still creaked above. I leaned over the edge, and I heard them. Not whispers this time. Screams. Hundreds. Thousands. They didn't echo upward. They spiraled like the sound was being dragged around and around, deeper into the dark. The stench of blood and wet earth punched me in the face. My vision blurred. And then, something moved down there. A hand. Not too long, not too many joints. The fingers curled against the stone, nails scraping like knives. Another hand followed, then another. They weren't climbing out. They were pushing something out. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. The children's figures began swaying in rhythm, their mouths opening wider, the air vibrating with the first low hum of a chant. And then I saw not a face, not a body, just hunger. A darkness so thick it bent the air around it. It filled the well, swallowing the screams, swallowing the light. And it wanted me. I ran. God help me, I ran. But the sound followed. That sucking, dragging pull of something crawling closer. And the children's chant rose higher, their broken smiles stretching in the mist. Here's the thing. When you're marked by something that old, that hungry, there's no outrunning it. It already has your name. So I'll ask you, what would you do if you saw a hand like that rising from the dark, reaching for you? Would you look away, or would you look deeper? If you made it this far, comment and subscribe. Share this story so no one else stumbles into a cursed village without knowing the price. Back in index 20, right, check the pinned comment for the next part, if you're brave enough.
A final whisper lingers, barely there. One last heartbeat, thoughts slow and final. soon, but the fog remains.